Hi there people, Rod Fleming here. I know a lot of you want more videos of me and Sam together, and we will be doing some more. In fact, we are going on a trip today. It's a kind of family excursion, so we'll do some video, we'll do some fun stuff, and post that. I'll post that when we get back. But before I do that, before we go in fact, I want to discuss something that has just come up. I've started seeing recently stories that Bruce Caitlyn Jenner is considering detransitioning. Now, this particular story has been cropping up for some time. It first appeared months after his first announcement that he was now a trans woman, and it happened again in 2017. I've just seen a piece by Ben Shapiro saying that this again is being claimed that Jenner is intending to detransition. And I wanted to have a quick word about that because actually, funnily enough, this is really common. And if you look at the profiles of the better known autogynephiles who appear on YouTube, this is Raya for example, you'll find that they really have an issue with their self-ideation, that they swing, they're not consistent at all. And this is typical, absolutely typical of autogynephilia. You have to remember that in the closeted phase, which in the Western profile of autogynephilia can last for even 50 years. In Jenner's case, it lasted 50 years, approximately. Autogynephilic transvestites go through binging and purging cycles, right? Remember, what happens is the subject becomes sexually fixated on himself, right? But he's a straight person. He's got a heterosexual. He's heterosexual. He has a standard male sexuality. So he can't become sexually aroused at the idea of himself, his own body, as a man. So he has to create a pseudo-feminine character to play that role, for him to get off on, right? So he becomes that character. He plays that character typically by dressing in women's clothing and masturbating in front of a mirror. Now that's absolutely not the only way they can do this, and we've discussed the many forms that autogynephilia can take, but this is a really graphic one, so you're going to understand it easily. The same underlying procedure will happen in all the forms, and of course in autogynephilia the different forms, they can happen all together, in multiples, singly. It's a very complicated and nuanced mental condition. And what happens is they binge and purge. So what will happen is that the person begins by maybe stealing or buying some women's underwear. It usually starts by illicitly borrowing a family member's female underwear or some other item of clothing. They masturbate in it. Immediately afterwards, they're overcome by guilt, and they feel sick. And there are reports in the narratives of them actually physically vomiting, being so repelled by what they've done that it actually has a physical effect on them. So they stop. They go, "Oh, I'm not doing that again." But unfortunately, they've already started the condition. The condition is already present, so they will start to feel a thing. We all know what it's called. It's called gender dysphoria. They'll start to want to live that character again. They'll start to want to live that experience. It's like a hunger, a sexual hunger. So eventually they're going to have to assuage it. And the next time, they probably will go a little bit further. And they might have more sophisticated clothing. They might start to use toys. That's absolutely typical of these men. They'll start to penetrate themselves with toys. Okay, again, this is all happening in secret. And the same thing will happen. They'll be absolutely disgusted by what they've done and throw it all away. Get rid of it. No, I'm not doing that again. And then a month later, 5 weeks later, 6 weeks later, they've got that urge, they've got that feeling, they've got that itch. They have to sneak into their daughter's bedroom, steal some underwear, and do it again. Or something like that. Maybe go online, onto an online site, and there are many of them, where they will happily supply you with outsized women's clothing and lingerie, stuff like that, in nice plain brown paper envelopes that nobody will know what's in them. Addressed to you or to a place where you know it will be safe, and you can collect them there, and your wife will never know. Because remember, an awful lot of autogynephilic men are married. They're heterosexual men. Okay? So what happens is that this cycle of binging and purging becomes increasingly intense, and the cycle shortens in period. So that they go between the binging, the buying of the props that they need to indulge their fetish, and the purging, getting rid of them. Not only does the time in between these events reduce, but the intensity increases, so they actually spend more, and they get more and more involved in the autogynephilic character. It can bankrupt people. It can literally bankrupt people. Women who find that their husbands are spending a lot of time in the house but alone, in a locked bedroom, for example, and there's a problem with the family finances and they can't figure out why. You know, the guy's still in work, he seems to be making plenty of money. This is a possible cause. He's spending all his money binging on buying women's clothes online through sites who specialise, who cater for men like him. Places like Birch Place. I think there's loads of them. There's just loads of them, which specialise in supplying men like this, and there are many, many men like this with the props that they need to indulge their fetishistic fantasy. Now, what happens is that the pseudo-feminine character gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and we've done videos on this, and eventually it can actually challenge the male host. And at that point, if it takes over, if it becomes dominant, the subject feels intense gender dysphoria that can't be got rid of. The only solution, because you've already tried all these, cyclical things, is to transition full-time and publicly into a woman. And that's what they do. But they still have the same condition. The myth is that transition cures autogynephilia. It doesn't. It may help relieve the gender dysphoria, but the condition is still there. And so what will happen is they'll go through the exact same bouts of really promoting themselves as autogynephilic and being, I'm a woman, I'm a real woman. I really, really am, you mustn't, I'm so feminine, And you're talking about Bruce Jenner. I mean, who thinks Bruce Jenner is feminine? Let's be honest. And then the next week it'll be like, oh no, I've got to go back to where I was. This is no good. I can't do this. And you get this cycle. There are cases on record of people who are autogynephilic, men who are autogynephilic, transitioning and having GRS, full sexual reconstruction, gender reconstruction surgery, desisting, that is detransitioning, having the surgery changed back so that they had a penis reinstalled, and then doing it again. I'm not joking, doing it again. So that this cycle can continue and continue and continue forever. It costs huge amounts of money. It does enormous amount of damage. In the meantime, families are ruined, lives are ruined, careers are destroyed. Most autogynephilic men are not millionaires like Bruce Jenner. Most of them depend on holding down a job to support families and to indulge their fetish. And eventually their fetish will destroy all that. It will completely ruin them. Autogynephilia is a terrible thing. It's debilitating. It's an awful, awful condition. And we should not, under any circumstances, be indulging it. We need to say, no, stop now. Stop it, stop it, stop it. We need to have a great deal more research into what causes autogynephilia and how to either relieve it or cure it, because we can't go on like this. The situation in the West has become completely outrageous, where autogynephilic men, and they are men, are demanding entry into women's spaces. These are men. They're sexually attracted to women. Now, we're not talking about HSDS here. We're not talking about homosexual transsexuals. Homosexual transsexualism is the natural endpoint of transgender homosexuality. So that's all your feminine gay men. The natural endpoint of their development is transition, and they're only held back by social factors that prevent them doing so, right? In an ideal world, and I live in pretty much an ideal world in this regard, you would see so many more HSTS in the West, and you probably will see increasing numbers. But they're not like AGPs. There's no comparison between them. An HSTS will simply blend as a woman. That's what she'll do. She'll just be a woman. And if there's lots of women around doing a certain thing, she'll be there and nobody will notice. AGPs predate on women. They're preying on women. And every time you reward them by saying, oh, you look pretty tonight, dear, or whatever, you are actually feeding their fetish. Because it feeds on that idea of validation. you know, as a woman. I know I'm a real woman, everybody thinks I'm so beautiful. Caitlyn Jenner, and all these nonsensical stories about, you know, what kind of man would sleep with Caitlyn Jenner. Well, I'll tell you, no bloody man would sleep with Caitlyn Jenner. Give me a break. It's a guy in a dress. This is not a woman. It just isn't a woman. You know, and you have to get this through our heads. And the problem is that because this is a very severe mental disorder, transitioning will not cure it. It might temporarily assuage the symptoms, the dysphoria, but this is cyclical in nature and it will continue to show this binging and purging effects. Fair enough, a lot of autogynecophilic transvestites are very good at hiding the periods of their lives when they're in regret, because they feel that they can't simply turn around and say, no, I'm actually a man. They would feel immense amount of shame. And so what happens is they get even more confused and subject to dysphoria, basically. So this is what we have to remember when we're looking at cases like Bruce Jenner. Now, I don't know if Bruce Jenner does plan to detransition, or it's actually desist is the term, but the fact is that this is really common, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit if he did. There would be absolutely in the profile. And Bruce Jenner, the one thing you can say about him is he's a classic example of the Blanchard Western model, late transitioning autogynecophile. He doesn't resemble the Asian model or the South American model very closely, because there's the differences between the two profiles in the West. The West is a very unusual culture in terms of this. And we'll go into that some other time. There's too much to go into that here. But in terms of the Western culture, the Western profile of ATP, that is your classic. That's what they do. You look at what Bruce Jenner does, and yeah, that's exactly what they do. No difference. So no, it's not going to surprise me at all. If the man turns around and says, I miss being Bruce. You know, I just miss being Bruce, and I'm going to go back to being Bruce. No, I'm not even going to be slightly surprised by that. So I thought I'd bring that one up and just mention it to you. Let's say we're going to go back. We're going on a nice trip today, so I'll do some video and post that when I get back on Thursday. Probably Friday, but never mind. Take care. See you later.